And welcome back. Our third conversation this morning is via Zoom with our friends from the National Garifuna Council. And for those of you guys who may not know, we're kicking off the month of celebration of all things Garifuna and all things Garifuna Duo.
Yeah.
We have with us via Zoom the president of the NGC, Sheena Zuniga. Good morning, Sheena.
Beat Benafi.
Beat Benafi, Nito. We also have with us the vice president of the National Garifuna Council, Ifáṣínà Efunyemi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Mawig.
Mabuga,
Oh, I love it.
Let's start about the month of November and its significance for us leading up to November 19th.
November is the time that was advocated for by T.B. Ramos, Thomas Vincent Ramos, and his colleagues to honor our contribution as Garinago, arrival and contribution to Belize's development. What is significant this year, this 2023, is it commemorates actually 200 years since the mass arrival. Now, Garinago had been coming to Belize since after we were exiled. So since 1797, when we were left at Roatan, Honduras, our people were already exploring the Central American coast. So we were already looking for other locations to settle. But the largest number that came under Alejo Beni in 1823. And it's important to correct that because there've been some errors in terms of that year in the past, but the correct year is 1823 under Alejo Beni, and that is what we are celebrating. That's significant, 200 years since our mass arrival to Belize, and so much has happened since that arrival. So this year, all our branches have sent calendars, which we've shared, of their various activities that they'll be doing, and we ensured that within the theme for this year, we included that recognition of the 200 years since our mass arrival.
How do we perhaps move away from the idea that is associated with the 19th, that it's all about simply celebrating the arrival, and perhaps move more into a universal conversation about cultural preservation, about education, about being able to hold on to some of the values that make us who we are as a people?
Well, we have a forum that we're working on, and our president can tell us a bit more about that. That's one, we deliberately decided on that because we wanted to change that narrative as well. It's not just about drinking and dancing and festivities, because we do have serious conversations that need to be had about where we are as a people. So one of those discussions actually will be happening coming soon. And so I'll defer to our president to give us details about that forum.
Okay, so the forum that will be held is entitled Beyond 200 Years, a reflection of the past, present, and future of the Garinago in Belize. We thought this was necessary for us to have a conversation, especially with the youths, the Garifuna youths. So we're going to be holding this panel discussion in Dangriga on November 9th at the Dangriga Town Hall. And we're reaching out to youths in our diaspora. We're also having Mr. Roy Cayetano, Ifáṣínà Efunyemi, who will give some historical context of the Garinago. We are also engaging the Mayor Mariano, who will also be a part of that conversation, because we're hoping that after that panel discussion, we are tasked with some things to do in terms of how do we work together as a people moving forward. How do we fight for our rights as a people? What are we need to get the youth's ideas so we can involve them moving forward.
I want to ask you, Sheena, to expand on some of the rights that you guys are fighting for as a people.
Okay, some of the rights we're fighting for is to be acknowledged as Indigenous in Belize. We're also fighting for the rights, our land rights, that's something there's a lot of misconception on why we are fighting for land rights. We're not fighting for communal land rights, but we're fighting to know that the government engage us and is aware that the lands that are traditionally Garifuna are traditional Garifuna, and they should involve us in decisions made regarding our lands. We're not asking to be owners of the lands, but we want to be consulted. We need to come to the table to be aware of what's going on in our communities, so we know how to engage the communities and what is necessary.
And we should have a first say. We're looking at continuity in our communities, and the trends that we've seen is just the wanton sale of lands that were traditionally occupied by us. So in a recent project that we did, we realized that so much Garifuna lands specific to our communities, our traditional communities from Zuniga down to Barranco, has been taken from us. Whether it is, and of course the government has a role to play in this, because the government is what controls the lands around our communities. And what has essentially happened is that we don't have the access to our lands the way that others seem to have ready access to our lands in Hopkins, in St. Bite, in Dangriga, in Barranco. There are so many threats to us owning land and being able to pass that land to future generations. That can't continue to happen. We cannot continue to have limited access to the lands that we traditionally occupied. And we occupied large tracts of land because we were farming and we were protecting those lands all this while, including the sea in front of our communities. But the government making those kinds of decisions without consulting us, without considering us, without even making sure that we are protected, our rights are protected, our future as our communities are protected, that is a problem. That is something that we need to engage the government with. And they already had signed an MOU with us that they need to be honoring. So we're going back to the drawing board to say, listen, you agreed to these things and we are holding you accountable to them, because you said in good faith, we met with you, we made this agreement, you signed it, and you said you would comply with these things so that we would not be disenfranchised. But that has happened over these 24 years since the signing of that MOU. It's time to correct that.
Can I argue, simply for the sake of being a devil's advocate here, that
don't advocate for the devil, Isani.
that as coastal and seafaring people, that a majority of the communities that we've settled, including Hopkins and Placencia, that we've purposely, and while there is part of it that the government will accept, we too have purposely sold off some of these prime lands for the development of tourism destinations. Part of that responsibility, I would want to argue, falls on us. When we look at St. Bite, for instance, and the entire portion of the Placencia Peninsula, where a majority of the sea frontage has been sold by the persons who once held on to those properties as members of our Garifuna community, at what point do we say, okay, you know what, we also need to stop that particular practice?
I can tell you of numerous Garifuna conventions. I mean, I've been in the NGC since the age of 14, 1991. From then, so many conventions in which our land rights and protecting our land and preserving our land has been discussed over and over again. But we have to understand too that we are victims of colonization, an education system that has taught us to value working for salaries, an education system that taught us that going to the farm is not the best way to go, that we should seek job security. Then we had those instances where you can't afford the taxes, and this has been true from colonial times, not being able to afford the taxes being levied by the state in relation to those lands. And yes, if you have not been taught a healthy relationship, to have a healthy relationship with money, with finance, how would you know the value of prime property? A lot of our ancestors made those sacrifices. A lot of families made those sacrifices because of health reasons, being able to access healthcare, because of wanting to educate their children. They made those sacrifices for those reasons, thinking that, okay, if I get my child to go to school, if I'm able to access healthcare, we can live longer, not recognizing how detrimental that decision has been. So yes, Garinago are guilty of selling their lands and underselling their lands as well. Now, does that actually free the state of responsibility, as well as the people that bought those lands for far less than their worth, and now have those very lands on sale on the market for over $2 million, which we now cannot afford? No local Belizean can really afford to get back those lands. It's a deliberate thing. So yes, we have some responsibility, and ignorance was a part of that. The education system that we have and how we've been taught away from the land and away from farming has a part to do with that. But of course, the capitalists and the state is a part of that issue. They're responsible too. So all parties are wrong. And now the rates in terms of land, once you're going to pay land tax now for the kinds of developments that have happened, it's gentrification. We can't afford to even own lands in our communities anymore. That's not our fault.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so think about that. You know, there are many people that need to be held accountable. And if people, based on need, why were they even in the position that they needed to sell their land so that they could get adequate health care? They needed to sell their land so that they could go to school, send their children to school. They needed to sell their land so that they could seek other opportunities elsewhere, because they're not seeing those opportunities readily available in Belize.
Well, I was just
it hasn't been studied properly, so maybe it needs to be researched.
Well, I was just about to say that some people have sold their lands in pursuit of the American dream. I look at St. Bite, to me, as a classic example of that. As a child growing up and visiting those communities, St. Bite was once very much a Garifuna stronghold. Now when you look at it, it's all resorts and you know, everything is catered to the tourists.
Yeah.
But that's a separate conversation.
Yeah, that's
We've
only
digressed.
a part of one of the
Yes.
activities that will be held for this month as it relates to cultural activities in honor of the Garifuna people. Let's talk about some of the others that we can expect this month as well.
Well, the first one we want to highlight is that we have our annual Solidarity Mass on Saturday, starting at 10 a.m. at St. Peter Claver's Parish Church in Punta Gorda. And we also have the Miss Garifuna Belize pageant being Saturday night, starting at 6:30 at the PG Sporting Complex. We have 5 beautiful Garifuna young ladies vying for that title this year, from Hopkins, Dangriga, St. Bite, Belmopan, and Punta Gorda. So that's just 2 of the highlights happening this weekend.
Wonderful. And other activities leading up to November 19th?
Well, we have in our different 12 branches, we actually have 12 branches for National Garifuna Council. So everyone is having their own different calendars. We have the 19th, they're going to have Expo in Dangriga on the 18th. They're also going to be having a Garifuna Attire Gala at the 17th in Dangriga. San Ignacio is doing their launch today with the San Ignacio Santa Elena Town Council. So there's a lot going on in the different communities. We also had shared the different calendars on our Facebook page if anybody is interested to view what's going on in their communities.
I know that
Wherever you are, you could be involved. Anywhere, once it's where a branch of the council is, there will be some activity that you would be able to participate in for this year, for sure.
Do we know whether Dangriga, perhaps like years before, will be the center of where the government will actually participate in the official ceremony?
Yes, it will be in Dangriga again this year.
All right.
Wonderful.
I don't think that will change anytime soon, Isani.
Just asking.
Right? It's the hub. It is the hub. This is
Indeed,
this is in
indeed.
fact the culture capital, right? So that's where a lot of the officials will be present, including, well, we're expecting the Prime Minister as well to be a part of our activities for this year. And this is, like I said, a very significant year of festivity and reflection because it's 200 years since the mass arrival.
Can I make a humble appeal here with no offense intended to any one of my Garifuna brothers and sisters in Dangriga? Simply to say that, so there's an annual pilgrimage to Dangriga every 18th, right? Where we all celebrate and we bring in the Urume and everything. But I want to make a humble appeal that we need to stick to the Garifuna foods and everything there, right? I know that there's been a conversation with other people who have traveled down south and have been unable to either locate places where they can purchase the food and what have you, and so they resort to other food that is non-Garifuna. So perhaps it's an appeal to say, well, we could get prepared from now to have everything on hand for our guests. Is that a fair appeal?
It is fair, but there's a scarcity in plantain. So they might have to pay a little bit more extra for hudut if that's what they want. Plantain is 75 cents for one.
Wow. All right.
Fair. Well, my last point, and I'm speaking from someone that admires the pride and the cultural experience that we share every November, specifically November 19th. Speak to us about why you believe that this month brings not only Garifuna people together to celebrate the activities being held, but also the contributions of the Garifuna people.
Well, our contributions are not just to ourselves and our communities. If we think about, for example, the work we've done significantly in the education system, we did not educate just Garifuna people. In fact, it negatively impacted us in that many of our scholars ended up leaving our communities to go and educate others. And that has impacted our communities because then we did not have the benefit of them in our communities to help with the development of our communities, and that we can see now how we are negatively affected by that in the present day. However, the rest of the country benefited from that, and that is something to recognize. That is something that we must definitely celebrate and discuss and acknowledge because it was significant to this country's development. We haven't just been in these various, festive activities either. We've been in government too. We're decision makers in our communities. And despite some of the negative impacts in terms of our economic development, we're still involved in the economic activities of this country. We still have Garinagu that fish. We still have Garinagu that are in enterprise. They have businesses in various communities, not just the Garifuna communities, but elsewhere. We have a lot of Garinagu who are in the public service as well. So when we look at our contribution, it is so widespread. When Belize is promoted, why you should visit this country, the Garinagu, we are a part of that because we put this country on the map. And that is something that we are happy to share with others. And we want that to be always recognized and respected, that our contribution has been such that it has put Belize on the map. So when people come to our communities for the 19th, or any of the activities that we have throughout the month of November, they're acknowledging what we have contributed to Belize. And it is not just about